XPlainer segment here into the conversations of the weather community on X, formerly known as Twitter, because everybody is buzzing about what the changes were like as we moved into the system.
Well, because they were pretty big changes, Steve. I mean, we had a big question mark. Is it going to take the northerly route, southerly route, or no development at all? So a lot of folks kind of waking up earlier this morning to a big change in the overall forecast.
So you look at it here, this was what we talked about yesterday, right? And I want to bring in Fox weather producer Matthew Blue. He writes, one of the most remarkable and sudden shifts and folds in an ensemble guidance I've seen, especially for the revered Euro model. All eyes on the Gulf later this weekend for potential tropical development, maybe, Debbie? But the threat for prolific rain event is increasing for Florida. So what Matthews is saying, this is what we were talking about yesterday. The Euro said, man, GFS, the other model, you look like you know what you're doing. I think it's going to go towards the Gulf.
See, usually Euro does tend to do a little bit better with tropical systems, although the Euro and the GFS really go hand in hand. They go back and forth as to which one can really understand these forecasts a little bit better. But as you mentioned, Euro saying, GFS, I like what you're thinking. And the GFS then aided a little more strengthening in this system with their later model runs, which is why we had a shift from maybe the Atlantic coast now back into the Gulf of Mexico. But the Florida Peninsula is still completely encompassed in this blob of where we could see development occur later this week.
And notice the color change, too. Better confidence ahead that it could get developed and go in this direction. You had said entire portion of Florida, why Governor Ron DeSantis has already issued a state of emergency for many counties there, almost the entire state. By the way, Matthew Blue, here at Fox Weather, wasn't alone. Our Fox Weather hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross, he also weighed in.
Yeah, he said the disturbance, now tagged by NHC Atlantic as Invest 97L, appears likely to end up in the Gulf. Intensification is possible. Stalling, looping, and being extremely obnoxious is all very possible. Impacts might last through much of next week. Forecasts will be changeable with a stalling and crawling system.
Felt like I've been called that a time or two. Extremely obnoxious, stalling. But no. We're talking about Invest 97L. All right, we've already laid out the cards and the players at this GFS and the Euro, right? Two different shades of red. Here is that consensus, relatively strong as we enter into Sunday morning. It's in the Eastern Gulf. But as Brian said, it's going to be a massive headache because from here on out, it is wild, the options ahead.
Yeah, there's not a good steering flow with this system, which is why it remains somewhat stagnant in this area. And any subtle change in the overall steering pattern can cause it to maybe jet a little farther to the left, to the right, maybe north, or down towards the south. But I think the big messaging here, my cousins were texting me today saying, we have a trip planned to Florida. Should we go? Should we not? And whether or not you see impacts with this system in terms of a landfall of a tropical storm or a hurricane, which is within the realm of possibility, all the beach days are probably looking like a big scratch off. It's not going to be possible because it just lingers. I mean, look at the timestamp here. This is Saturday into the evening of next week.
Next week. By the way, when you're looking at L's, that's where it could form, right? That could be where the actual storm is. So that gives you every option. Obviously, as we get deeper and further away, there's going to be bigger margin of error. But to your point, Sunday, we started good agreement here. By Saturday, the following day, it could still be here. Speaking of that stalling mechanism, let's get to Andy Hazelton. He says the GEFs for the 97L shows the dreaded squash spider. What does that mean? It means the tracks are going many opposite directions. And here's all the possibilities. Number one, quick turn across Florida, and then it recurves back. 2, stalls over Florida. 3, stalls over the Gulf, and then heads west or north. 4, stalls east of Florida. I mean, there's one consistent message in all that. Stalling. Let's talk about the steering. You did a great job of highlighting it. After it leaves the Caribbean, not much of a steering mechanism from that point on, and why still all of these options are at play.
The overall model trend is that this will become our next named storm, Debbie, with the big old question mark from our producer, Matthew Blue. And so once it gets into the Gulf, it will be likely a little more disorganized than if it had taken that northerly jog because it's interacting with more of the greater Antilles, spots like Cuba, the island of Hispaniola. But the Gulf of Mexico, the water temperatures are certainly warm enough for it to kind of gain a little more strength in this body of water, especially if it's able to sit without land interaction for a good 1 to 2 days. So that'll be the concern moving forward. But we've been talking about the heat, this high pressure system guiding it and keeping it in this general direction, another high pressure system, and then that jet stream dip kind of keeping it all locked in place right there.
Yeah, not allowing to budge. You got this barrier that's in place. So again, for everything that's going to happen, most conducive to really start Sunday all the way through next week in these areas of red. So we've highlighted Florida, but areas like Alabama, Gulfport, Biloxi, and even areas of Louisiana should be watching this closely. I think it's all summed up by this final tweet. This is a parody account. I love Nick, the storm chaser. We were looking at, this is all the options ahead, by the way. I was saying that this kind of looks like a cat that kind of yacked up a hairball. I think your analysis was probably a little more.
Well, if you're either allergic to cats or not a cat lover, maybe mine will resonate a little bit more. I said it was like you put your headphones that have cords in your bag, and then it all gets crumbled up like that. And
You still have corded headphones?
no, I don't.
Oh.
But when that did happen, when that was a thing, that was the most frustrating thing that would ever happen when you're at the airport. So that's why a lot of meteorologists out there are a little frustrated waiting for this storm to officially start to develop. Once you get that core and that circulation there, the models have a much better grasp as what we're expecting moving forward.
And we'll pass that along, so stay tuned here. The other big topic, of course, severe storms. It's the season that just never ends. We're talking about day 4.